Welcome back, Bearded Nation. Bearded Brother Matt here, and I am back with yet another Trade Dissection. Today, we're going to go through that time that a team had to trade off its very first ever homegrown superstar. And this one is near and dear to my heart. And today, we're going to cut down into the Kevin Garnett trade. Now, I should never have to explain to anyone who Hall of Famer Kevin Garnett is, but for the sake of completion, here we go. Drafted 5th overall in 95 by the Minnesota Timberwolves out of Farragut Academy, he would start 43 games his rookie year. He averaged 10.6 boards and 1.8 assists. Not horrible, but far from what he would become. Over the next 10 seasons with the Wolves, so 11 in total, he would become a perennial all-star and average 20.5 points, 4.5 assists, and 11.4 rebounds. He would lead the Wolves on an improbable run to the Western Conference Finals in 2003-2004. However, his feelings towards the organization, and specifically owner Glenn Taylor, whom Garnett called snake-like, began to diminish greatly over the following seasons. Finally, at the end of the 07-08 season, with his contract coming due the following season, and KG himself saying he probably wouldn't stay in Minnesota, the Wolves pulled the chute and traded Garnett. Once it was known he was on the block, teams bullied up to try to get him. There was almost a deal in place to send him to Phoenix that fell through, and finally, GM Kevin MacLeod got on the phone with his former teammate Danny Ainge, now the GM of the Boston Celtics, and put together a massive deal. The deal was Garnett to Boston for Ryan Gomes, Gerald Green, Theo Ratliff, Al Jefferson, Sebastian Telfair, a 2009 first-rounder 6th overall, and a 2009 first-rounder 28th overall. Whew! That is a haul. Let's see what happens during this trade. And we're going to save Garnett for later, and we're going to go ahead and cut down onto the Wolves side. So let's talk about it. Ryan Gomes. He averaged 12.3 points, 1.7 assists, and 5.1 rebounds over 3 seasons with the Wolves, mainly starting as a small forward. He would end up getting packaged with Luke Babbitt, and they would be sent to the Portland Trail Blazers for Martell Webster. He played on off the bench role for the Wolves, averaging 8 points and an assist and 3 boards over 2 seasons. Waived after his 2 seasons, and that's kind of where his little part in all of this ends. Gerald Green. He was traded partway through his first season with Minnesota to Houston for Kirk Snyder and a 2010 second-round pick, 45th overall, that was used on Paulo Prestes. Prestes never played a game in the NBA. Too bad. Snyder finished off the season in Minnesota as their off-the-bench small forward. He doesn't appear in the NBA in the next season. So, there you go. Now, Theo Ratliff, 10 games, waived, gone. Sebastian Telfair, we're going to skip Al Jefferson, we'll come back to him. Bassie, he played a little bit from and would get 2 seasons in this particular go-round. He'd come back later. He would average 9.6 points, 5.2 assists, and 1.9 rebounds over 2 years as a platoon point guard. He would be traded with Mark the Mad Dog Madsen and Craig Smith to the Clippers for Quentin Richardson. Richardson would go to Miami for Mark Blount, who would immediately be waived and not play games in Minnesota this time. This is his second time coming back. Now we got to go talk about Al Jefferson. See, Jefferson was the one piece that actually helped. He played 3 seasons of Minnesota, averaging 20.1 points, 1.6 assists, and 10.4 rebounds. However, he was very much a back-to-the-basket, set-up-your-half-court offense type of player. The Wolves wanted to get out and run a little more, so they traded away Jefferson to Utah. In return for Costa Kufas, a 2011 first-round pick, 20th overall, that would become Donatas Motiejunas, and a 2012 first-round pick, 18th overall, that became Terrence Jones. Kufas played 39 games in Minnesota before being flipped. He was sent into a 3-team trade blender, and the Wolves came out of that with Eddie Curry, Anthony Randolph, and a 2015 second-round pick, 37th overall. Okay, you're going to see in this particular tree, these picks, these 3-team trades, 4-team trades, the blenders, they are the bane of this dissection because there are so many of them. Trust me, we'll get there. Okay. Curry was bought out almost immediately by the Wolves. Randolph played parts of 2 seasons in Minnesota and left in free agency. The Wolves would flip the pick. It would be used on Rayshawn Holmes, and they would send it to the Portland Trailblazers for Tanguy Ngombo. I could not find a pronunciation on that. Sorry if I got that wrong. What am I saying? No, I'm not. I don't care. Now, back up. We have to look at a few other things. We're going to save Motiejunas for later. So let's talk about that 18th overall pick in 2012. It was used on Terrence Jones, but not by the Wolves, who flipped the pick to the Rockets for Chase Budinger and Lior Eliyahu. Budinger played 3 seasons in Minnesota before being flipped to the Indiana Pacers for Mo Radesh. He played 1 season in Minnesota and left in free agency. Eliyahu spent 7 years with the Wolves as his rights holder. He never came to America to play in the NBA. After that time, the Wolves flipped his contract rights to the Golden State Warriors for Trayvon Graham and Shabazz Napier. All right, Trayvon Graham. Let's take a look at him first. He played part of a season in Minnesota before being flipped with Jeff Teague to the Atlanta Hawks for Alan Crabb. Crabb played 9 games in Minnesota and got waived. Napier played 36 games and then got tossed into the 4-team trade blender. Out of that trade, the Wolves would get Evan Turner, a 2020 first-round pick, 17th overall, Malik Beasley, Juan Hernan Gomez, and Jared Vanderbilt. Turner never set foot on the court for the Wolves. But we can move past him. We'll skip the pick. We'll come back to that. Malik Beasley. He had a few very good seasons in Minnesota, averaging 15 points off their bench as a shooting guard. He will be traded, but we'll have to come back to that. Juan Hernan Gomez spent 2 seasons in Minnesota, coming off the bench as a power forward and averaging about 15 points a game. He would get flipped with Jarrett Culver to the Memphis Grizzlies for Patrick Beverley. Pat Bev! Pat Bev had a reputation as a lockdown, no-nonsense defender. And guess what? He brought that to Minnesota. Would help them into a playoff spot. Jared Vanderbilt was a depth power forward who spent most of his 3 seasons in Minnesota averaging 6 points a game for them. Now, we get to go over to the draft pick. 17th overall, Alexei Pochushevsky. Fun name, isn't it? Now, he would be traded before ever playing a game, and oh look, it's another 3-team trade! Minnesota would get out of this a 2020 first rounder, 23rd overall. Actually, they would get the player who was drafted 23rd overall, Leandro Bolmaro. They'd also get Jaden McDaniels, and hey, Ricky's back! Ricky Rubio! Sorry, I have a soft spot for that Spanish guy. Alright, so currently McDaniels is the power forward behind Karl Anthony Towns, but this season he's been pushed into a starting role with KAT dealing with a calf issue. He's not done too bad. He's averaging somewhere around 11 points a game. Now, Rubio's return lasted full season before being flipped to the Cleveland Cavaliers for Taurean Prince and a 2022 second rounder, 40th overall, used on Bryce McGowens. Prince has been an off-the-bench forward, averaging about 8 points a game or so for the Wolves, and McGowens was flipped right after the draft to Charlotte for Josh Minott and a 2023 second rounder. And that pick is in the future, so we have no idea what it's going to be yet. Now, let's go back over here and look at Leandro Bolmaro, because that's an interesting one. He was traded after spending a season in Minnesota with Malik Beasley, Pat Bev, Walker Kessler, Jared Vanderbilt, a 2023 first rounder, a 2025 first rounder, a 2026 first rounder, a 2027 first rounder, a 2029 first rounder, to Utah for Rudy Gobert. Okay, this is going to be its own dissection in like a decade if I am still doing dissections at that point. But that's actually not a bad grab, as Gobert plays center for Minnesota right now, and he and KAT will form a dynamic front court if they're both ever healthy at the same time. Meh. Now, we have to go talk about these two draft picks all the way back up here. Why? Because they make me angry. And why do they do that? Well, you got to understand, Minnesota that season, the 2009 draft, had 3 picks, 5, 6, and 28. With the 5th overall pick, they nabbed Ricky Rubio, which is why I said, welcome back, Ricky Rubio! With the 6th, they would grab Johnny Flynn, and with the 28th, Wayne Ellington. Who was the 7th overall pick? Steph Curry! Man, that just makes me want to pull my hair out. The 9th pick was DeMar DeRozan. I mean, could you imagine grabbing Curry at 5 and DeRozan at 6? Congrats, you just remade your backcourt in one night. You don't even need the 28th overall pick at that point. You can trade it away. But that's not what happened, so let's look at it. Ellington is shorter, so we're going to look at him. He was flipped to the Memphis Grizzlies after 3 seasons, averaging just under 7 points. They would get Dante Cunningham out of that. He played 2 seasons, averaging 7.5 points in Minnesota, and left in free agency. Now, Flynn was a massive disappointment. As a rookie, he averaged 13 points, 4 assists, and 2 boards. He also averaged a single steal a game and 3 turnovers a game. Not exactly the lockdown, sure-handed point guard you thought you were going to get. He didn't even make it through the next season before being flipped, and he was packaged with, hey, it's Mote Yunus again! Along with a 2012 second-round pick, 40th overall, that would be Will Barton, and he would be flipped to Houston for Brad Miller, Nikola Mirotic, Chandler Parsons, and a 2013 first-rounder, 26th overall. Miller played a total of 15 games for the Wolves and got flipped, along with a 2013 second-rounder that was Lorenzo Brown, and a 2016 second-rounder, 35th overall, that would be used on Rade Zagoratz. And they flipped that to the New Orleans Hornets for what would have been a pick, but the conditions weren't met, so basically they just gave them to the Hornets for nothing. Nikola Mirotic was flipped on the same day to the Bulls for Norris Cole and Malcolm Lee. Now, Cole was then flipped on the same day again to the Miami Heat for Bojan Bogdanovic. Again, the same day he would be moved to the Nets for a 2013 second-rounder, 52nd overall, and that was Lorenzo Brown, which is where they got that to trade away with Brad Miller. Malcolm Lee, on the other hand, he will eventually be traded, but we'll get to that. He played 2 seasons in Minnesota. Give me a minute, we'll get there. Now, Chandler Parsons, he was traded to Houston for cash. I don't have that on here because I don't do cash, and cash isn't all that interesting to me. Now, that first-round pick, 26th overall, was used on Andre Roberson, and he was flipped on draft day with Malcolm Lee to the Golden State Warriors for a 2014 second-round pick, 53rd overall, that was used on Alessandro Gentile. They would flip him to the Rockets for cash. And that's where all of this massive stuff ends for Minnesota. How did they do? I mean, they did okay. They still have some stuff from the trade that can become stuff, and they got Gobert. But they could have had DeRozan and Curry, but they drafted stupidly. Overall, it's okay, but they could have done so much better. It's why I'm just such a frustrated Minnesota fan. Now, how did Boston do? Fantastic. See, the year they got Garnett, they won a title with a big 3. Could have argued it was a big 4 with Rajon Rondo, but let's be honest. Garnett, Paul Pierce, and Ray Allen were the stars around which everything else orbited that year. And they won the actual NBA title. Didn't do so well the year after that, but the following season, they would go back to the NBA Finals, but they would lose in 7 to the LA Lakers. Sorry, guys. However, eventually the decision was made in 2013 for the Celtics to cut bait and rebuild. So, they would package Garnett with Paul Pierce, Jason Terry, DJ White, a 2017 first-round pick, 27th overall, used on Kyle Kuzma, a 2017 second-round pick, 57th overall, used on Sasha Veznikov, and send that all to the Brooklyn Nets. And what did they get back? Keith Boggins, Marshawn Brooks, Chris Humphries, Chris Joseph, Gerald Wallace, a 2014 first-round pick, 17th overall, a 2016 first-round pick, 3rd overall, a 2017 first-round pick, 1st overall, and a 2018 first-round pick, 7th overall. Oh, okay. That's a 15-piece deal. Stupid. And you begin to see why doing this frustrated me so much. All right, so let's cut into this. Hey, I had to do all the research for this. You sit there and watch it. It's like your mom. I cooked it, you better eat it. Okay, where were we? Boggins. Boggins was flipped with 2 conditional second-round picks that the conditions weren't met on. Scratch those out. And sent to Cleveland for John Lucas III, Eric Murphy, Dwight Powell, Malcolm Thomas, and a 2016 round 258th overall pick, and a 2017 round 253rd overall pick. Okay, let's get into this. Make this as simple as I possibly can. JL3 was waived and never played a game in Boston. Murphy would be waived and never played a game in Boston. Malcolm Thomas, guess what? Was waived and never played a game for them. That second-round pick in 2017 was used on Kadeem Allen. And guess what? He played 1 season and was waived. The 2016 was used on Abel Nader. And he played 1 season in Boston before being flipped to the Thunder for Rodney Purvis, who was, say it with me, waived and never played a game in Boston. Now, Dwight Powell, he played part of the season for Boston and was flipped with Rajon Rondo to Dallas for Jay Crowder, Jameer Nelson, Brendan Wright, a 2016 first round pick, 16th overall, and a 2016 second round pick, 45th overall. Okay, Jay Crowder. Jay Crowder we're going to skip. Why? Because he is part of another trade, but we'll come back to that. Jameer Nelson. Nelson played 6 games in Boston and was traded to the Nuggets for Nate Robinson, who was immediately bought out, waived, and never played a game in Boston this time. See, I had a huge bit over here. There's a whole bunch of stuff. But then I realized that Nate Robinson actually was in Boston twice. And I looked at the first time he was traded away and got all confused. So I did a whole bunch of work for nothing. So I'm a little mad about it. But you know what? Shrug. I'm the idiot who didn't double check everything. All right. It's been fixed, though, so we don't have to go into it. What happened, as I said, this time Robinson waived, didn't play the game there. Now, Brendan Wright traded to the Phoenix Suns for 2 second-round picks. One is the 35th overall pick in 2016, and the other is a 37th overall pick in 2017. Haven't we seen that pick 35 there somewhere? Yeah, I will swear that we've seen the name Zagoratz before. Oh, yeah. That's the trade. That's the one of the picks Minnesota traded along with Brad Miller to the Hornets, and now somehow it gets over here. So much fun. See how all of this is interconnected, and it's making me nuts. The 37th overall pick in 2017 would be used on Shimi Ojele. He would leave in free agency. However, Zagoratz was traded along with Deonta Davis to the Grizzlies for a 2019 first-round pick, 20th overall for Matisse Thybulle. Thybulle would be traded the day after he was drafted to the Philadelphia 76ers for Carson Edwards and Ty Jerome. Now, Edwards played 2 decent seasons off the bench for Boston before being packaged with Chris Dunn and a 2026 second rounder that we don't know what it's going to be yet, and sent to the Memphis Grizzlies for, hey, look, another name we know. It's Juan Hernan Gomez. He would be sent into a 3-team trade blunder, out of which the Boston Celtics would get Bol Bol and P.J. Dozier. P.J. Dozier and Bol Bol would then be packaged together along with a 2028 second rounder and sent to the Orlando Magic for a 2023 second rounder, which is in the future. If somebody's watching this in 2023 after the draft, let me know what they got. I'll fill it out. I can't promise I'll make a video on it, but there you go. Ty Jerome. Ty Jerome never played a game for Boston and would immediately be packaged with Aaron Baines and flipped to the Phoenix Suns for a 2020 first-round pick, 30th overall. They would use that pick on Demond Bane, who never played a game there and was sent into a 3-team trade. This would net Boston a 2023 second-rounder and a 2025 second-rounder. We, again, future. Don't know what those are. So, now that that is all over, we can go back, because that is just from Boggins. Let's go take a look and see what they got from Marshawn Brooks. Okay. Marshawn Brooks played all of 10 games with Boston before going into a 3-team trade. Are you sick of these yet? Sorry, they're not ending anytime soon. Out of that trade was Joel Anthony, a 2015 second rounder, 33rd overall, and a 2016 second rounder, 51st overall, and a 2016 second rounder, 31st overall. So, What happened to all these guys? Well, the 2015 33rd overall pick was used on Jordan Mickey, who played 2 seasons in Boston as a bench player before being waived. However, he is signed with Miami, and somehow that amuses me. The only way it would be better is if it was in Orlando. The 51st overall pick was used on Ben Bentel, who never played a game for Boston, and was waived. Deonta Davis, oh, we kind of know what happened to him, don't we? He was traded away, over here somewhere. Joel Anthony. Joel Anthony finished out the season in Boston and then was flipped to Detroit for Will Bynum, who, guess what? Never played a game for Boston and was waived. Chris Humphries, he did finish out the season in Boston, played a full season there before being traded to Washington for a trade exception. Chris Joseph played 6 games for Boston before being waived. Gerald Wallace played 2 seasons there before being packaged with Chris Babb and sent to the Golden State Warriors for David Lee, who played 30 games in Boston before, you guessed it, he was waived. The 17th overall pick was used on James Young. He played a few unremarkable seasons in Boston and they let him walk in free agency. The 3rd overall pick in 2016, however, was used on Jaylen Brown, and he has blossomed into an all-star shooting forward. He's capable of playing both small forward and shooting guard depending on what's needed. This has worked out incredibly well for them overall. Now, the 1st overall pick in 2017 was Markelle Fultz, but that wasn't used by Boston as they traded this pick to the 76ers. For the 3rd overall pick in 2017 and a 2019 first round pick, which would be 14th overall. With that 3rd overall pick, they would get Jason Tatum. He's a perennial all-star at power forward for the Celtics and has been an absolutely fantastic pick. Fultz finally seems to be finding a stride after a trade to Orlando, but is far from all-star caliber. The 14th overall pick in 2019 was Romeo Langford. He had a few unremarkable seasons in Boston before being packaged with Josh Richardson, a 2022 first rounder, 25th overall that was Blake Wesley, and a 2028 first rounder that is in the future for the San Antonio Spurs for Derek White. Okay, so Derek White has been a pretty decent shooting guard for them. He's averaging about 11 points, but that's because his touches have been limited. I think overall he fills that role better, and Jaylen Brown sits very well at a small forward with Tatum playing up at power forward. That's a good lineup for them. So this worked out decently for them. So, what about this last pick? Colin Sexton, 2018 7th overall pick. Here's where Crowder comes back in. So it was used on Colin Sexton, but pick was packaged with Jay Crowder, Isaiah Thomas, no, not that Isaiah Thomas, Ante Djidzic, and a 2020 second rounder 50th overall used on Skylar Mays, all to Cleveland for Kyrie Irving. Smash blockbuster. Of course, Irving left in free agency and we know what happened there, but still, a good deal at the time. Now, that's where this all ends. So, you know what, I'm not even going to ask Boston outright. They have a trophy from this, they drafted smartly, they traded well, they have a heck of a team today, and it's one of the best in the league. There's no doubt Boston wins this handily. Now, if the Wolves haven't done badly, but they really bungled that 09 draft. If they hit on that, they may be the winners here. And they didn't, so this is where we are today. They also gave up a ton of future for Gobert, and now Towns is hurt. We haven't been able to see what they would look like when they function together. So that's where this ends. Next time, we're going to go back to the NHL, and we're going to look at a player that people said was too small to play in the NHL and what he became. I'll leave you with that cryptic message. So, till then, if you like this, go ahead and swat the subscribe and dribble all over the like. Leave me a comment about what trades you would like to see me break down, and as always, till next time, stay bearded. Peace!